Hello, everyone. Welcome to the seventh edition of our podcast. And thematically, we call it Beyond GDP, and where we invite eminent people, distinguished speaker who have been involved in economic policy making, influencing economic decisions of this country at the highest level that has impacted the lives of common people and people from diverse backgrounds, how they have been receptive of their views, their ideas, and the way the policy formulation has happened in this country. And as a country, our economic decision making has not been dictated or mandated in one direction because of different factors that we're not getting into. But just to have a very brief perspective, economic decision making is not in isolation of the political willpower. So, as a country, vibrant democracy, we are in fact the largest democracy that has experimented multiple political ideologies, and we obviously the baseline is 1947. Between then and now, there have been different regimes that have been in charge of the governance of this country, and obviously economics is a part of the overall ecosystem. The nexus, the interconnectedness between economy and politics cannot be overrated. So, in that sense, the kind of people that we bring them, they are very close to not strictly to the power corridors, but they are the people who are listened to the power corridors very carefully and very, very seriously. And today we have a very distinguished guest, and it's a very, very special session for us for this simple reason. So far, all the previous episodes, the guests that we had, they all, we can appropriate them to one template. They have something or other with the economic policy making, economic landscape of the country. But we never had the opportunity to have somebody who were academically so distinguished because everything starts with the classroom. And the gentleman that we have today, in a moment from now, I will introduce him to our listening audience. So he's not someone who has localized his expertise only to the classroom. So he has uh, diversified his expertise much beyond the classroom. But yes, the original identity is he's a retired professor of IIM Bangalore. So we have today one of most original minds in finance and public policy, Dr. R. Vaidyanathan. So really appreciate you joining us and taking time out to engage with us on such an important topic. We're really grateful to. A retired professor of finance at IIM Bangalore, Dr. Vaidyanathan is a two-time Fulbright scholar, a fellow of ICSSR, and has served on key regulatory bodies including SEBI, RBI, IRD, and PFRDA. He's a prolific author with acclaimed works such as India Unique, Black Money, and Tax Havens. And in the course of our conversation, we will make a passing reference to the books. And most importantly, he also has written a book called Caste as Social Capital. And obviously, the mandate is not to get into the caste census, and there are a lot of media bites, but it is left to the discretion of our learned speaker how he wants to deal with the subject. It's just that caste as a social capitalism, the book, and being an Indian, I think we all relate to what it means for us. His insights span finance, national security, dharmic thought, and I underline it, dharmic thought, and geopolitics, making him a rare voice of civilizational depth in modern academic discourse. Currently, emeritus adjunct professor at Rashtriya Raksha University, that's in Ahmedabad. He's also involved in the running of Shastra University in Tamil Nadu and former member of India's National Security Advisory Board. Dr. Vaidyanathan continues to shape strategic thinking rooted in Indian values, but that's very important. See, often we have seen that no matter what has been our growth trajectory, we have knowingly or unknowingly as a country, we have developed a tendency to get an external validation. There's nothing wrong in doing that, but somewhere we take, if not taking pride at least, but very conveniently we start giving up or we feel ashamed. And for strange reasons, that is probably Professor will unpack for us. He will unravel some of those disturbing tendencies that has crept in the very systematically, that has been ingrained to our way of thinking, that as if past had nothing for us to take pride in today. Going back to the Indian values, hold a lot of values at a time like this when we are poised for our next round of growth. He has been conferred a lifetime contribution award by Asia Pacific Risk Insurance Association and Kaivo Life in 2019. Most importantly, it will carry a lot of interest for our youth segment in the audience. Today's speaker, he not only a professor in the real world, even in the real world, he has been a professor. So I'm referring to one of the Bollywood blockbuster, Three Idiots. It was casting Amir Khan, Madhavan, and few other great actors of our film industry. So where our learned speaker for the day, he acted as the guest professor. I'm sure he will care to tell about his filmmaking experience. With this, get into the core conversation sake, and spirit of this session has always been handing over the platform to our speakers for the simple reason that don't feel the need for laying down even a broad framework for them to no anchoring required per se, but still just to give a touch and feel of a structured conversation. What we do is we try and raise some issues points, and the speaker is at liberty to design their talks, and they're not constrained by exactly what the questions are put, because that's not idea. It's a very open-ended conversation. The only caution and care that we try from questioning aspect, it's a non-commercial initiative here. The only idea just to get some insights from people who come with vast long experience in the course of their career, and that is something that we believe that will inspire whoever listens to it, so they'll be able to relate that what we really mean when we talk on these subjects. That we don't get into areas where what can be misconstrued or even any mileage can be drawn out of. But however, as speakers, as we say, that we do not control the thought process of the speaker, because these are not the people who are amenable to somebody else's thought process. But with the caution that we don't get into anything that is related to the theme. Sir, with this, we once again we invite you to this session, and we can engage with the conversation that we intended to have with you, sir. Sir, you are a man of numbers. So you trained yourself. You went to Loyola College, and you went to Indian Statistical Institute for your masters. Then you did your PhD from IIM Calcutta. You taught there for about 4 5 years before finally coming to IIM Bangalore. So all through your academic contour has been strongly related to finance, economy, statistics. However, what we see, so in your expanded identity, in your intellectual journey, that has spanned into geopolitics, national security, dharmic thought, and public policy. So it will be of a great interest for us to know that what actually catalyzed, what was the trigger for you to shift. And I mean, it's like everybody knows when Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was born, but nobody can tell that when he became Mahatma Gandhi. So it's a journey. If it is some moments where you thought, okay, finance is not the only thing that I should keep myself busy with. There are other avenues, there are other areas that I can contribute to.
Thank you, Savisachi, for that kind introduction and a nice background provision. As far as I am concerned, I come from a very or spiritual background, and I've always been inclined towards certain cultural values. And Sanskrit has been my second language throughout the career till my post graduation in my school as well as in the college. I have studied Sanskrit in terms of all Kalidasa work, Bhattabhana's work, and other thing. So there is, and I have always been in some way or other positioned my theoretical or with the academic thing in the context of politics, in the context of politics, not in the party politics, but in the context of understanding of the policies. That is how it evolved actually. Then when I was in Calcutta for a period of 10 to 12 years. And so that also to some extent shaped my interest more in politics. As I think, as Sabyasachi, you would know that Calcutta, creeps on somebody's except mine was a different type of politics. It was not the politics of that time. So that's how it got. And then 76, the famous emergency came, and I did my own small role in terms of opposing it and other thing. And then later, I came to Bangalore, and then my journey continued. It's not something. So it's a, I would say it's not either or type of thing. It is parallelly. It was going. And my book, Caste as Social Capital, for instance, is a combination of my understanding of finance as well as the social system. So thanks for initiating this thought process. Thank you.
Sir, before we move into the next point, last year or so, maybe a little over a year ago, there was a very eminent sociology professor by name Jitu Oberoi in Delhi. So he passed away. And I came across one obituary note by Mr. Dipankar Gupta. Then he was teaching in JNU. I don't know where he is now, but he's again another very distinguished sociology professor in the country. You don't need an introduction for him. So what Dipankar Gupta wrote, I remember the title. He was talking of something aphorism. He said what the great work of Jitu Oberoi will be history, but his aphorism will be legacy that we have to carry on. In one of the conversation in Delhi University coffee house, he was making a comparison between the people who are in corporate and the people who are in academics. He said, look, we are creating minds, but at the same time, why is the people who are employed with corporate remuneration is much higher? And the reply was epic. So the job of a teacher is not just to explain the concept; they open up the minds of the people. In that sense, why I brought this, it is not very relevant. We are super inspired. We are very enthused and looking at your energy level. And when you said so, that Sanskrit was your second language throughout your academic pursuit, so that itself is so profound. So because language becomes a very formidable part, inevitable part of our culture, and Sanskrit is our identity. So if you say that, so that your conviction is not something which is recent, so it has been always been with you. So they're very encouraging. So good that we have people of your stature who have achieved so much in life, but they still attribute some of it to our original traits in the name of advancement, development. Probably we tend to ignore that. So I think your things will bring back people to the course. Sir, with this, we move to the next point. You were associated with numerous organizations. One such thing is Rashtriya Raksha University and Shastra University. Um, you have worked at the intersection of national security, economic strategy, civilizational thinking. So here in this context, do you see that can our universities and think tanks they evolved into an ecosystems that produce original strategic thought, like what Arthashastra tradition that was written before Christ era, but that still holds good even for corporate governance. With your deep involvement, understanding, instead of merely consuming a global policy paradigm.
For one point, I want to stress, if you see, read my Caste's Social Capital, I've extensively used both Dipankar Gupta as well as M.N. Srinivas, who was earlier one of the very renowned sociologists. So what you are telling is correct. I've used Dipankar Gupta's writings and quotes and other things. That's one point. The second is what you are mentioning for a long period of time. See, we are genetically tied to the Western world. Our umbilical cords are tied to the Western world. We say look east, but our head is to the west only. So many reasons are there for that. Currently, for instance, most of the top bureaucrats, judges, political leaders, all their children are studying in US or UK or something, you know. And historically, we have been enamored by them. We would like to get a green card post retirement to go and settle there, and all that fascination is there. And intellectually, it is considered that they have to give us the importance. So their uh, getting their recognition is extremely important. For instance, I have seen physically myself some of the bureaucrats and ministers running away from meetings. when they are told that Reuters or Bloomberg is come to interview them. That enormous amount of enthusiasm is there, and we want to be recognized by them. That's very, very critical. You take all the important institution, IITs, IIMs, and other thing. How much they have published in the journals of abroad, particularly in US and other journals, that's a very important yardstick. That's considered as a serious type of a research. Like that, one can go on accumulating any amount of uh, Indian knowledge system. Very recently only has come into its own core position or something. Some recognition is there. And for instance, if we have Kerala mathematics, which is much more evolved compared to many of the treatises which are mentioned by the West. It solved many of the trigonometric as well as algebraic, so many issues and other thing. But somehow or other, we have not recognized it. If you look from the point of view of the ministry, the kingdoms, Chola kingdom running into 1,000 years, Chalukyas, Rashtrakuta, so many type of kingdom. But we only read about Mughal kingdom, which is hardly for some 250 years. So this is something which has distorted our thinking, and we are not able to. But slowly, I am sure many locations I find, many places I find enthusiasm for our own history, and which is what I would rather call the true history, as well as our past achievements and other things. It will take time. It will be maybe a couple of decades from now only. It will have its interesting thing, because external recognition is something which is very critical for us in the past. Satyajit Ray wouldn't have been popular but for his recognition given by the Foreign Film Academy, and Pater Panjali got during that time. I do not know whether you are aware. Chunnamul was produced by another other directors, very similar, but that Chinnamul was not popular or something. And Ray got so much amount of accolade, and same thing about Tagore. But for his Nobel Prize, I don't think he would have become any great poet. And he was a great poet, but recognition. So Vivekananda, he gave so many lectures within country. Who cared? But the one Chicago lecture made him the. So the external recognition is something very, very important for us, including a simple thing like that Operation Chindur. People are asking who is supporting you, who praised you. Nobody is willing to listen to our own government part of the statement. Is there any other country? It can be Uruguay, it can be Algeria, it can be any country which has supported your cause, and which told that you have destroyed so many of those. So this is a long drawn out process. It's not something which is of yesterday or day before or something. And I am sure in the next maybe 30, 40 years, this would get slowed down as the country also become economically more powerful. These are all interlinked actually.
Yeah.
The more economic power, the more your assertion, more your ability to stand up. Now itself, I find in social media at least, large number of people don't take this BBC and NYC and other thing on a very serious basis. So I think this is not something which zero one type of a solution. It will take its own time. That is my view, Sabyasachi.
You made an important point when you said there's a direct link to the economic ability of the nation. Obviously, the control over post, control over independence. So, our dynamic shift is a function of the economic position of that particular power. So, the process, it's but as you say, the course correction has started happening. Now we move to the next. Given your deep understanding of India's financial infrastructure architecture, having advised the regulators like SEBI, RBI, What do you think? Are regulatory frameworks evolving fast enough to support the indigenous capital formation while guarding against financial shocks and regulatory overreach?
Yeah, you are talking about the top level regulators like RBI, SEBI, and other thing.
Yes.
They are all, in a sense, evolving, I would say. It's not something which is, and as usual, all over the world, there is a lot of deficiencies of the regulator. Sometimes, some part of the world, the regulators are abused in terms of being corrupt and other things. So many, but much more critical, according to me, is the regulator at the lower level. For instance, Food and Adulteration Act, Shops and Establishment Act, Boiler Act, hundreds of these, which is affecting the small businesses and other thing. The ease of doing business is completely eroded because of the type of regulation there. It's not regulation, it is straightforward bribery and in terms of doing business. So, for instance, Food and Adulteration Act is supposed to help people from having clean food and other thing. But everywhere you will find the small restaurant fellow or the roadside fellow, an envelope, put some money and give it to the inspector. That's all. The type of regulation. Otherwise, he will, initiate action. So the cost of our economy, according to me, at least 10 to 15% more than what it should be because of the level of corruption at the lower levels. And the same thing at the much higher level also. But the possibility of higher level, you see, they have chartered accountants, they have legal uh, groups which will fight the case. If SEBI says that you are not supposed to do something to, say, very major business group, immediately their lawyers will go there, their chartered accountants will go there and try to. But for very small person who is who is doing everything, he is the marketing manager, he is the finance manager, he is the production, he doesn't have all these things. The only way he can sort it out is to give some money to the inspectors. So we have the very interesting situation of regulators at the top level and trying to organize and regulate various of these. Even within that, so much amount about Arshad Mehta, about the NSE, various stages of scandals. And so it's not something very easy or something. The point is, under we don't have the concept of conflict of interest. We have only interest, no conflicts. So that is how we have, developed our system. We have developed our. See, a simple thing like a huge amount of cash has been found in a judge's house. So much silence and so much amount of, and there is some discussion, some impeachment should be done. Some people are arguing, no, we should not. This we are become very, very, uh, what I would rather call corrupt society. And corruption is something which unity in diversity. Actually, it's not the common language or something. From Kottayam to Kohima, same level of corruption. And if you ask me, the most secular activity in our country is corruption. All are corrupt. Kurmis are corrupt, Brahmins are corrupt, Vaishyas are corrupt. You Muslims are corrupt, Christians are corrupt. So you can't exclude anyone. It's the most common secular activity. And it is also more, the crossing the border from Andhra Pradesh to, the upper Maharashtra, crossing the border from Tamil Nadu to Andhra Pradesh. All of these are same level of corruption. It's some sort of, it gets, so regulation is extremely critical. But according to me, any number of laws, regulations, and other things we can have. But what matters is who sits in that chair, how he is able to deal with it, how he is independent, how he is having good amount of integrity. Otherwise, you might have seen Sabyasachi, India is the only country where we teach students in CA and BCom income tax laws and practice. Nowhere in the world you have income tax laws and practice as a course. The course is income tax laws. We have contract laws and practice. We have banking laws. And what is this practice business I investigated? It's bribery. How to get over this law. So the law is taught, and immediately you are also told how you can overcome the deficiencies in this law. And so it's not a very uh, desirable state of affairs. And the more type of immediately people say we have more regulation is not a solution, because most of the regulation is perceived as generating bribes for government employees. There is nothing more or nothing less than that. So more regulation is not going to help. We should have less regulation. If you ask me, least amount of regulation, but we should be able to punish people. It's not something like a case that drags on for 20 years, at the end of which you declare that this man is not guilty. That's not the type of regulatory framework that would help our economy, that would also boost our economy. This is something which I think this is a major issue which we should focus now. The corruption, ease of doing business is impacted by corruption. Any amount of seminars you do in Delhi is not going to solve this problem of ease of doing business. Ease of doing business is at the lowest level. We should look at my vegetable vendor who has some 300, 400 rupee, 300 rupee turnover, has to pay something like 20 to 30 rupees per day in terms of meeting the cops and local gundas and other things, which comes to it could be 10% of the turnover, not profits, turnover. You can imagine. Obviously, she has to incorporate it into her sales price.
True.
When I buy the vegetable from her, that will be part of that. It cannot. Uh,
It
so,
can be
to
out of
that
pocket.
extent, that's what
Yeah.
I am telling. Around 15% is my estimate. Some places as high as 20%
Mhm.
is the higher cost we pay for the economy.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it would be much lower relatively. Again, let me repeat, every regulation is perceived to be for generating money for the bureaucrats,
Mhm.
not for actually regulating. What? Second, increasing the amount of regulation is not going to solve the issues.
Mhm.
Second thing. Third is, I have always been offering a solution. Holding more than 5 lakh cash can be made into a crime. No need to prove that it is disproportionate to your sources of income and other thing. No, just holding more than 5 lakh cash is enough. And you will find most of the raids conducted and other thing, huge amount of cash is collected, because it's very difficult to collect bribe in the form of check or GPay or anything. People normally don't want to get into those things in
Create a
collecting
audit
bribes.
trail. Mhm.
So this is what is my understanding. So we require regulatory regulation, any amount of regulation I can. I have been associated with all this, but what matters is who sits in the chair.
Mhm.
Let me give an example. T.N. Session, even though he has been derided and other thing, whatever he established as a election commissioner, even today is helping the election commission. He did not bring about any new law or any new regulation. Nothing he brought. Existing ones he used. But he became such a, what one can call, what you may loosely call, quote unquote, terror. And so again, the person who sat in the chair tells you much more about what could be done rather than all the existing rules and regulations. Yeah.
Oh, it's a very poignant question. One might find a strong view, but be that as it may, but that is something nobody can be in a denial mode that it doesn't exist. It exists. Put it very nicely. We've been tuned to measure in terms of GDP and what we aspire to be in. but the cost of economy, which is inflicting higher cost, so that is something I acknowledge that I got that perspective from you. With this, we move to the next point, and that's again with your another book that you wrote. Just before that, I think the digital push, at least this government committed to, and we have seen the result that is coming in all spheres of our economy. Probably to some extent, it has been a reason to address that. But again, as you say, if there is one individual or there's a group of people that determine to do something, the committed no system of enforcement can prevent that. So therefore, it is all about rebuilding characters. I mean, no amount of policing would help. That I would even agree with your observation, sir. So we move to the next section where we talk about your another book that is Black Money and Tax Havens. Sir, one of your points, I remember you said how the systemic loopholes and global enablers sustain illicit financial flows. You were referring to the captive flights. So, do you believe bring that concept in the Indian context? Do you see our system is doing enough? I'm not necessarily referring to any particular institution or government for that matter, the country and over a period of time. This is not a particular incident that we're talking about. As a country, the processes that we have, the system that we have, do you see that we are doing enough to dismantle these global financial structures that facilitate such illicit flows? And as we your section, we said India is in the next round of growth.
Yeah, I can, sorry for telling you,
Mhm.
not much is being done. One is, as one can say, all of them are Nanga. Everyone is involved in this, and judges are involved, bureaucrats are involved, netas are involved. All of them have got illicit money abroad. So it's not something which overnight you can deal with it or something. I have everyone has kept some cut money there. Whether you are a PSU chief, whether you are a private businessman, whether you are a government bureaucrat, whether you are a minister, everyone except perhaps few in the cabinet, almost all. So it's not going to be very easy. Even the Supreme Court collected some 2022 sealed covers about this SIT, Special Investigation Team, which went around the country and other thing. They have not, told anything about what is inside those covers, whether they are blank covers or. So it's a very major. So if you ask me, more than political, it's a social issue completely, comprehensively. And when the list, whenever the list comes out, another thing, you will be shocked actually. Almost all the icons' names will be there, whom you think are icons today. Some one or two people we are always telling we should, Vital Malaya and some Nirav Modi and all these things. And periodically the sensational news come, they are going to be, to the best of my knowledge, I have studied this comprehensively.
Mhm.
Not a single person have been extradited from any tax haven to the home country. Money has come, but not human being.
Okay.
Human beings are given, the permission to stay there and die.
Mhm.
That's all. For instance, take the example of Philippines.
Mhm.
Marcos, money has come. Not full money, some portion of the money.
Mhm.
And then, surprisingly, Nigeria's Sani Abacha, who was the military dictator,
Mhm.
he's accumulated some money has also come back
Mhm.
to the country from Swiss banks. And same thing about the Peru.
Mhm.
All these things, some money have been recovered. That's all. In Philippines, they constituted the commission which went on for 15 years,
Mhm.
not 1 or 2 years, different governments, but it was permitted to carry on. And then they found some billions have been taken away by Marcos and his Imelda, that his wife. And then finally some millions they got back. That's all. But it requires enormous amount of political will. This is something very, very important, which is not today available. And it's such a, what one can call a controversial. Controversial means what? All are involved. When every thief is involved, and so it is not going to be very easy for
And
somebody to. So putting the hand, one very senior official has told me, it is like putting the hand into a this honeybee that system. Once you put the hand, it can bite you, it can even kill you. So that is a type of a hornet's nest. But according to me, as our economic progress goes up in terms of domestic activity, GDP, and other thing, the importance of this accumulating money abroad will come down accordingly. It's not that all the money will come back or anything, but the importance will come down. So to that extent, we would be able to, in future at least, prevent this outflow of illegal money. That is what I would think of after doing all these studies.
The short point that you want to make here is that when the values have been compromised and you use the word secular, so there's a enormous consensus among all the players so that they give up all their differences when it comes to this particular issue. Sir, we switch to the next. Again, it's your book, Caste as Social Capital. Sir, in that book, you challenge the dominant narrative of your argument that the caste networks have functioned as a resilient institution of entrepreneurship and trust. In the age of globalization and digital commerce, how you think India leverage these organic social fabric structures as assets rather than its problems or liabilities?
See, let me tell you, Savyasachi, very important. Globalization is dead. No point in talking about globalization. Every country want to assert itself. Every country want to. That's how is happening. The Polish election, you can see the results. The Bulgarians revolting against EU.
Mhm.
The type of Hungarians, everywhere. The globalization, including the so-called, Switzerland, that World Economic Forum, his chair is now investigated for corruption. Anyhow, where our journalists used to go and interview our own industrialist. I can never figure it out. Why you should go all the way to
Davos.
Switzerland, stand in the midst of so much snow and ice, and then interview our Goenkas and our, the
Mahindras.
Indian.
Business
You can
tycoons.
do it in Bombay actually. Anyhow, somebody told sir this is how they get some boost and some sort of the normally the media doesn't provide them any opportunity. At least see, this is one good. So this is the whole idea is gone now. And independent after Tony Blair's speech in 2000.
Mhm.
He openly told the white countries have right to interfere in the affairs of others. There is no more consensus about non-interference or anything.
Mm.
Whenever England feels somebody is not doing well according to their idea, they can get into the other country. So this is not a globalization. So we are doing extremely well, if you ask me. Except unfortunately, we don't appreciate ourselves. This is something very, very important. If you ask me, GST, the EU professors have told me what we failed to do for 20 years, you are able to do it in India. This is something unbelievable. Some 21, 22 laws have been merged into one single law. Not many people know. I will quickly point out the originator of GST is nobody can guess. It is actually Jyoti Basu. He asked actually Ashim Das Gupta, that time finance, he has to become finance minister, about a survey. I was involved in that. That's why I recollect. In Calcutta, it was found roughly 40% of the establishments are not covered for commercial taxes, local taxes. 60% were only covered. So, what is the way to overcome this? One of the things was suggested was we should evolve a national system. That time Manmohan Singh was actually the economic advisor. He encouraged it. Ashim Das Gupta prepared the outline. Much later, in around 2017, if I remember, under Arun Jaitley, this was implemented. This is something remarkable, revolutionary thing India has done. And next one is our railway reservation. If you have traveled before 1990, you have to discuss with the TTE in order to get into the train. Otherwise, you will not be able to get into the train. That software has completely altered the. In those days, the cabinet minister of railways used to ring up general managers who should be put as TTE in which station. Sialda station, you put this man, Madras Center, because those were considered as all-time money, uh, you know, uh, jobs. That is gone now. Same thing, passport. Those days, you can't make a passport without a agent. Today you can book it on the line and then dates are given and you go and pay the fee and then do the thing. Then your GPay, all this pay term and other thing. Last but not, and then payment to municipal taxes and other thing by internet. And last but not least, the EVM, revolutionary in the whole world. It has got $2 billion export potential, but we are attacking it ourselves without realizing. It's like a calculator. It doesn't have any external linkages at all. In any other country, people who evolved EVM would have been taken around the country in procession and appreciated, but not here. It's a very, we are a self denigrating system. We never want to accept anything what you have done. That is our problem. But in spite of it, or uh, due to the, but system moves on. People were telling who is going to use this patam. Today, actually, it is revolutionized, and in the whole world, we are. And actually, there is one statistics which says we are going to cross Visa in terms of net transactions. Unbelievable, actually. Number one, we will become. But initially, many people were telling, including the then finance minister, P. Chidambaram, who is going to use it? Where is the electricity? Where is the power? And now the green signal light beggars, they have this Patam thing. He says, sir, so I tell in the signal light, I lower my window and say, I don't have cash. It doesn't matter, sir. You use your phone and shift money. Beggar for 5 rupee or 1 rupee, it doesn't matter. The type of revolution we have brought about
Mhm.
using tech. We are not inventors of any technology. Let's be very clear about it. We are
Mhm.
adapters,
Mhm.
great adapters. Anything which is found somewhere else, we quickly adapt it within the country. We adapt Marxism from abroad, we adapt software from abroad, everything we adapt locally.
Mhm.
Anyhow, so our economy is doing extremely well, let me tell you, in spite of all the, what one can call criticisms and in spite of all these naysayers. No, and for instance, we are now fourth in the GDP. But our previous finance secretary is having doubt about it. I wrote to him telling, please look at the IMF website where they are telling we are fourth. Why are you not believing it? So this is the type of, it's very complicated. Some people don't like us to do well. That's also there. This some are other way. War veterans, I call it. Wisdom after retirement. After retiring as education secretary, he writes a center page article how education sector should be improved. What he was doing for 10 years there, one doesn't know. Wisdom after retirement and not possible after my retirement. That is also there. Another group which feels that, after I retired, how can any, major changes or improvement can come. I am very uh, candid. We are doing extremely well. We have reduced, for instance, the acute poverty level in our country like nobody's business. All type of criticism is still there, but many states it is less than 5%. The level of acute poverty we have done good.
Right.
There is nothing, and of course, I won't say it is only due to this government or anything.
Mhm.
It is due to several other factors. As a society, we seem to be doing well. We have our own huge amount of deficiencies.
Mhm.
Like we don't even know how to celebrate a victory in a cricket match. without some 10, 12 people getting killed in that process. That's a very sad state of affairs. But we are, economically, but as we grow more and more, I'm sure many of these deficiencies will fall by the roadside.
That's
Thank
a
you.
very important point that you made. Self-demonizing tendency, that introspecting is one thing, but constantly running down yourself, demonizing self is a very disturbing, is a self-destructive agenda that we are on. And and you clarified very well, it is not just government or any particular agency entity, it's collective mindset. And I think again it's back to Vedas, like what Arya Samaj founder Saraswati, he was found. And anyway, somewhere you made a reference to M.N. Srinivasan, sociologist. Though I'm not a student of humanities, I'm an accountant by training, but part of my law, I studied family laws, and he talks of many social transformation. And I think there's one paragraph that I am able to recollect where he talks of Brahminization. So that's a narrative for another day with how that experiment that worked. Uh,
He calls it Sanskritization.
yes,
But
I know,
I now find in the last 2 decades, it's more Vaishyavisation. The
right,
whole India is becoming business, Vaishyas.
true,
We are losing our Kshatriya character. That's one of the sad thing actually.
yeah,
Everybody is becoming a businessman.
right.
The survey conducted recently by the Central Statistical CSO,
Mhm,
their NSSO
mhm,
finds 70% of the entities in the country, all type of entities,
mhm,
from the this Panipuri wala at the Chopati beach to Ambani, every entity has been listed. 70% of them are owned by OBC, SC, ST, which used to be around 40 to 45% in around 10, 20 years before. So what is taking place in our country is Vaishyavisation. Everybody is becoming a Vaishya. Everybody want to become a businessman, which is a very interesting thing actually. Nobody wants to be in any other activity. So it is not Sanskritization, it is Vaishyavisation, which is currently prevalent, which has its own implication. Everybody being business is good actually because business unites people, whereas politics divide people. This is something very, very interesting and important to note. Anyhow, that for some other day we will have a long discussion on it. For instance, the Muslims are more in business in the south compared to the north. And that's why, the amount of integration is here much, much higher in the southern part of the country compared to the northern part. Anyhow,
No,
so
absolutely.
Vaishyavism
I
is
now this reminds me before we wrap up. We are in the last leg of the conversation. I happen to spend a considerable time of my life in southern part of the country. I went to Chennai for doing my CA articleship, and then I was in Vizag. Then I lived in Bangalore for more than a decade, working for a couple of companies. So what you say, I relate to. It's quite resonating, and that was a very important online. Uh, we wanted to discuss with you, sir. Most of your talk, I'm referring to your public conversation. What one thing that catches my eye is you are a strong advocate that the Indian economic thought should be decolonized, and you try and link that to Dharma-based thinking that should challenge the Western notion of growth and development. So, is there anything that you would like to give a reference here? That
no,
what?
this I think many people are now coming around to the view.
Mhm,
You see, one size doesn't fit all. We tend to think that American models will be applicable in India and other thing, which is not necessarily true, actually. And that's what is important to understand. One size doesn't fit all. Each culture has got its own specificities. Each society has got its own specificities, and we have to build it on that basis.
mhm,
Our Weltanschauung or worldview is different. We have a cyclical worldview. One. Second is it is not required for somebody to come and tell trees are important, animals are important. For us, trees and animals are important from day 1, actually. It is not required for that Greta Thunberg from that sixth fail, seventh pass to come and tell us about. I remember in 50s when my uncle came home one day with a plastic bag. This was in 1950s. I was in school that time, late 50s, and he told he was bringing one sari in that, and he told this, this bag cannot be destroyed, cannot be. My grandma, who is illiterate, who is not illiterate in the sense she's not knowledgeable about English or anything like that,
Formal
she
education
told
was not there, but she
if
was learned.
something
Yeah.
cannot be
Mhm.
destroyed, it's not useful to this earth. Everybody laughed at her and told you are very backward. And the same thing now told by this Norwegian girl. Everybody is telling that she is very forward. So every culture, every society has got its own way of looking at things, and they do it well actually. There is no need for any recognition from outside or anything. We have to develop our own models. See,
Mhm.
for instance, we have a much more what you may loosely call relationship based society.
Mhm.
We are not a rule based society. We are not for instance, you rang me up and you told, can we have a discussion? I told, okay. That's all. There was no contract between us. I didn't demand that you send a legal format and I will sign it. If we were in US, we would have done that actually
True.
in terms of dual. We are a more relationship based society. So we should 90% of our business transactions are relationship based. Not otherwise our courts all would have got died long time before. Even today, our courts have got so much amount of pending cases. You can imagine if all these out of court cases also go there, you will not be able to. For instance, Gujarat, many people do not know, has least amount of judicial pending. The reason is most of them feel don't need to go to court.
Out of
We
court
will sort
settlement.
it out outside. So, like that, there are so many specificities within the Indian context which we should recognize, and we should build upon that instead of deriding it or instead of trying to uh, look at it as a negative point or anything. That's what my humble submission will be.
Absolutely. So that brings us to the uh, end of this conversation, where the last question, if you would like to pick up, it is in the context of global conflicts. There's a historical charge against India right from the Nehru's era, the non-aligned movement. India is on urge to pick up a side in global conflicts, okay, whether it is Russia, Ukraine, or Israel, Palestine. So, how, in your view, sir, I mean, how can India maintain strategic autonomy without appearing non-aligned? While our foreign minister recently clarified that to in a global stage that being neutral is also, I mean, that amounts to taking a stand, and I'll do what is best for my country's interest. But do you see that there is a need for us to sort of change the way we present ourselves?
No, very simple. We take care of our interest.
Mhm.
Like every other country, we should put our interest as the first line of defense. So we go on certain task or certain type of issues only. We are not, we shouldn't say we are aligned with the US, and the famous statement of Kissinger is always important. We don't have to choose immediately anything. On specific themes and specific tasks, we take our call and we go on. And as we grow bigger and bigger, economic growth, many people are not going to like it. Outside, I am telling other countries, many of them will not appreciate it, and we should not too much worry also. We should, as you let me tell you, as we grow more and more older, more and more bigger in our economy, as it is told, we are going to be lonely at the top. We are not going to be garlanded or appreciated or anything. Unfortunately, within the country also there are demonizing people. So it's a very complicated thing. But we don't have to be part of any lobby or anything. We can conduct our affairs as per our interest. What is in our interest? If it is
Absolutely.
in our interest, we will go ahead with that.
Thank you. Thank
Period.
you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Vaidyanathan, for a conversation that was not only intellectually enriching, but also deeply rooted in India's civilizational wisdom. From black money to Dharma, from caste networks to national security, but you have shown us that economic is never isolated. It is interwoven with culture, identity, and sovereignty. As India charts out its future in an uncertain world, your insights remind us that true progress must align with who we are and what are our core. And we hope our listeners walk away with a fresh lens, one that sees Bharat not as a problem to be solved, but as a civilization to be understood. But that is what I think we all should work on. And thank you once again, sir, for sharing your time and wisdom with us. Really appreciate you joined us, sir. Really appreciate. So with a great sense of gratitude, we end this conversation. Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot. Thank
Thank
you very much.
Namaste, namaste, pranam.